Ever heard of a battle so unlikely, so brilliant, it almost sounds made up?
Oh, I know exactly the kind you mean.
Well, get ready, because today we're diving into one of those, the Battle of Didgori.
Ah, yes. August 1121. Kingdom of Georgia facing off against the mighty Seljuk Empire. Stakes couldn't be higher.
Couldn't be higher is right. This wasn't just some skirmish. This clash launched Georgia into its golden age. We're talking a turning point in history.
Absolutely.
And to get all the details, we're going straight to the source.
The source.
Excerpts from the Wikipedia article on the Battle of Didgori. No stone unturned. So let's jump right in. Seljuk Empire, they weren't messing around, right?
Oh, not at all. We're talking a vast Turkish Sunni Muslim empire. They controlled a huge chunk of land.
Huge, like.
From Central Asia all the way to Anatolia. Massive influence.
So when they set their sights on Georgia,
It was a serious threat, no doubt.
what sparked the whole thing?
Well, you had these Muslim merchants in Tbilisi, Ganja, and Tbilisi.
Okay, so major trading hubs.
Right. And they had complaints. Claimed they were being mistreated.
And word got back to.
Sultan Mahmud II himself. All the way in Baghdad.
And he's thinking.
Time for an expeditionary force. Send them into Georgia. Make a statement.
Who leads this force?
A real tough character. Ilghazi ibn Artuk. Reputation preceded him. A brilliant commander.
Brilliant how?
Even took down the Crusaders. Battle of Ager Sanguinis.
That's saying something. So we've got this powerful force marching towards Georgia. What's the situation on the Georgian side?
King David IV. A smart, determined ruler. He knew he was up against it.
Outnumbered.
Oh, yeah. But he had a few tricks up his sleeve.
Tricks are good when you're facing those odds. What was he thinking?
First off, home field advantage. They knew that terrain inside and out.
Always a plus.
But he didn't stop there. He knew their old way of doing things.
Calling up the nobles, their troops, classic feudal levies.
Exactly. It wouldn't cut it against a professional army.
So David shakes things up.
Big time. Created a standing army, loyal to him, trained year-round.
Modernization.
Exactly. Standardized equipment, tactics. He even borrowed some ideas from the Byzantines, even the Crusaders.
Smart. But even with those reforms, facing those numbers.
Daunting, definitely. But that's where his next move comes in. He forms an alliance.
With?
The Kipchaks. Nomadic Turkic people, known for their cavalry.
Bringing how many to the table?
Add about 40,000 Kipchak warriors. That's a game changer.
Manpower, cavalry, the whole package. Talk about evening the odds.
Oh, and there's one more detail.
I'm intrigued.
Sources mention around 100 or 200 Frankish soldiers, possibly Crusaders.
Crusaders,
Yeah.
all the way over in Georgia. What were they doing there?
It's a bit of a mystery, honestly. Maybe auxiliary troops sent by allies, or maybe just mercenaries looking for a fight.
Whatever the reason, adds another layer to this already wild mix.
It does.
All right, let's set the stage. Seljuk army, led by Ilghazi, marches on Tbilisi. King David, his forces, bolstered by the Kipchaks and those Franks.
And don't forget those crucial reforms.
Ah, right, of course. They're positioned strategically in the Didgori Valley. This is a clash of civilizations, a battle for survival. We're ready for a showdown that will rewrite history.
We are. And we know the Seljuk army, huge, probably 100,000 to 200,000 strong, takes this road. Erzurum, Kars, and eventually through the Trialeti Valley.
Eastern Georgia, getting close.
Very close. They camp near Didgori and Manglisi, just a day's march from Tbilisi.
Practically on the doorstep. David's got to feel the pressure.
Immense pressure. Letting Ilghazi reach Tbilisi, that could be disastrous.
Why?
Large Muslim population in the city. They might side with the Seljuks. No, David had to stop them before they reached the city.
Enter a brilliant strategy.
Exactly. Even outnumbered, David's going to use every advantage he's got. Terrain, his trained army, the element of surprise.
This guy's thinking 5 steps ahead.
Like a chess grandmaster. And get this, before the battle, David gives this rousing speech to his troops.
Rallying the troops. Love it.
Picture it. Thousands of soldiers, hearts pounding, they hear their king echoing across the valley. It's faith, homeland, everything on the line.
Powerful stuff. Unity like that can shift the balance, even against a larger force.
It can. And the Chronicles say David even blocked any escape routes. Branches piled up, no way out, victory or death.
Talk about all in. He must have had immense faith in his plan.
And his men, that confidence, it was key. Now, David, he splits his forces.
Two groups.
Larger one under his command, they take the main position. Then, smaller force, led by his son, Demetrius III.
Okay, I'm seeing the setup.
They're hidden, in reserve, ready to strike at just the right moment.
This is where the tactical genius comes in, not just brute force, it's outsmarting the enemy.
That's it, exactly. Now, the sources describe the battle itself in different ways, each emphasizing parts of David's strategy.
Okay, let's break it down. What's the opening move in this chess match?
Well, one account from Ibn al-Athir, who's an Arab chronicler, he describes how David sends a small group of Kipchak horsemen towards the Seljuk army.
What were they doing?
They pretended they wanted to negotiate. A classic feint.
Lure them in, make them feel confident.
And it worked. The Seljuks, they completely bought it.
They fell for the trap.
Hook, line, and sinker. They see these horsemen and think, oh, deserters coming to join us.
A fatal miscalculation.
Oh, yeah. So what happens next? These Kipchaks, they get close to the Seljuk leaders, and boom, surprise attack.
No way.
They unleash a volley of arrows, manage to kill several key commanders. Ilghazi's son-in-law even.
Imagine the chaos.
Utter chaos.
Uh,
And all the while, David's main force. They're still hidden, waiting for their cue.
so Seljuk leadership is in disarray. What's David's next move?
He doesn't waste a second. Two-pronged attack. First, his Crusader Knights charge right into the Seljuk vanguard.
Bold.
They break the lines, engage the archers, take out that ranged threat.
Throwing the whole front line into chaos. Love it.
At the same time, David himself, he leads a cavalry charge down the western slopes of the mountain, aiming right for the Seljuk left flank.
Cavalry charge. Down a mountain.
Hundreds of heavily armored horsemen, lances down, thundering down, crashing into those bewildered Seljuk troops.
Epic. What about the other flank?
Not to worry. David's son, Demetrius, he's leading a similar charge on the right flank.
A pincer movement. Caught between a rock and a hard place.
More like a hammer and an anvil. Seljuk troops, they're panicking, leaderless, they start retreating, trying to escape through a gap in their rear guard.
But that gap.
Oh, that was part of the plan all along.
He led them right into a trap.
Exactly. The Chronicles call it a terrible and savage slaughter. Georgians pursue relentlessly,
And the Celtics.
left to the carnivorous beasts and birds of the mountains and plains. Not just a defeat, a complete annihilation.
Sources mention thousands of Seljuk casualties. This was a victory for the ages, the kind that reshapes empires.
It truly was.
We'll dive into the aftermath, the impact on Georgia in part 2, but for now, let's just sit with the brilliance of King David's plan, the audacity of the Georgian victory.
It's quite something to think about.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the Battle of Didgori. Last time, we were right in the thick of it, watching the Georgian army pull off this incredible victory. Those Kipchak horsemen, the Crusader Knights, and those epic charges down the mountain. Amazing stuff. But what about after? What happened when the dust settled?
Oh, it was pure chaos. Georgian cavalry, they're chasing down those fleeing Seljuk troops for days.
Days.
Capturing prisoners, amassing loot, the whole works. It's a once mighty army, now shattered.
Dramatic doesn't even begin to describe it. What about Ilghazi? What happened to the Seljuk leader after a defeat like that?
Barely escaped with his life, actually. Remember that initial Kipchak attack?
The Seljuk command.
Yeah, he got wounded there, limped back to his stronghold in Mardin, defeated, humiliated.
Quite a fall. From renowned commander to, well...
A cautionary tale. And the impact on the Seljuk Empire, huge.
Explain.
Their control over the region, it was seriously weakened. Even helped the Crusader states in the Middle East.
It's like...
A domino effect. One victory toppling the balance of power.
So, win for Georgia, win for the Crusaders, and a big setback for the Seljuks. David really pulled it off. What does he do next?
He goes straight for Tbilisi.
The strategically important city. The one that was under Muslim control for centuries.
The very same. The source of those merchant complaints that started it all.
It was a thorn in his side, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. And now he had the perfect opportunity.
So how does he take it? Another epic battle. A long siege.
We know he laid siege, but the sources, they're a bit late on details. What we do know is that Tbilisi falls in 1122.
Just a year after Didgori, that's going to be a huge moment.
Oh, it was a real turning point. Tbilisi becomes the capital city, a symbol of David's power, a unified kingdom.
Didgori wasn't just a battle, was it? It was a catalyst.
Absolutely. A whole new era for Georgia.
It's incredible how one event can have that kind of impact.
Isn't it? It's what historians call Georgia's Golden Age. Political stability, prosperity, a flourishing culture over a century.
This is why Didgori matters. It's not just about who won. It's about the consequences, the ripple effects.
Exactly. Didgori became more than a battle for Georgia. It became a myth, a story that shaped their identity.
You mentioned David moving the capital to Tbilisi. What else did he do? Did he go on a conquering spree?
David was a military man, no doubt. But he wasn't about conquest for conquest's sake. He wanted a strong, unified Georgia.
So more about building a nation.
That's it. Secure the borders, but also strengthen things internally.
Smart. What did that look like?
More military reforms, making sure they could defend themselves. He also consolidated his authority. Centralized power, a more effective administration.
Laying the groundwork for a modern state.
In a way, yes. Creating the institutions, the infrastructure needed for a strong kingdom.
Makes sense. But what about the people living in these newly acquired territories? How did they fit into this new Georgia?
That's a good question. Sources suggest that despite being a warrior, David was incredibly tolerant.
Tolerant? How so?
He knew that true unity, it wasn't just about force. It needed mutual respect, understanding.
He wasn't just imposing his will.
No. He was known for preaching tolerance of other religions, protected the rights of Muslims and Jews in his kingdom, even abolished discriminatory taxes, encouraged harmony between different faiths.
Sounds pretty progressive for a medieval ruler.
He was a complex figure, that's for sure. Strategist, politician, and surprisingly tolerant leader all rolled into one.
Ahead of his time in a lot of ways. So we've got Didgori leading to Tbilisi's liberation, a golden age for Georgia, and David becoming a national hero. How did they remember it all today?
Oh, Didgori. It still holds a special place for Georgians. A symbol of their strength, their resilience, their ability to triumph against all odds.
A reminder that even the smallest can achieve great things when they stand together.
Exactly. A story passed down, inspiring pride, patriotism.
Do they have any special traditions?
They do. Every August 12th, they celebrate Didgoroba, a festival commemorating the victory. Celebrations across the whole country.
I bet it's a pretty big deal.
Oh, it is. A day to remember their history, celebrate their heritage, reaffirm who they are.
And a monument.
Of course. A huge one near the battle site, depicting key figures, scenes. A popular spot for Georgians and tourists.
The place imbued with history.
Absolutely. A reminder that these victories, they echo through time, shaping identities, inspiring generations.
We've covered the aftermath, the impact, how it's remembered, but I'm still wondering, how did he do it? I mean, brilliant tactics, alliances, leadership, all that. But was there something more?
It's a question that historians still debate. David was a gifted leader, a strategist, no doubt. But some point to a less tangible factor, the spirit of the Georgian people.
That intangible something that can turn the tide.
Exactly. David wasn't just fighting for land. He was fighting for his people, their culture, their way of life. That kind of motivation, it can be incredibly powerful.
It wasn't just about military might. It was a nation united.
That's it. And it's often overlooked in the history books.
Yeah.
The power of belief, of purpose, of fighting for something bigger than yourself.
It adds another layer to this whole story. We've covered a lot, but there's always more, isn't there?
Oh,
So let's shift gears a bit. Let's take a closer look at the sources themselves. What do they tell us? How do they help us piece together this puzzle?
sounds good to me.
Next time, we'll delve into the historical record, unearth those fascinating details. Join us as we explore the sources that illuminate this miraculous victory. Back again for our deep dive into the Battle of Didgori. We've explored the clash, the strategies, the impact on Georgia, but now let's turn to the sources themselves.
It's like they're time capsules, right? Holding clues to unlock the past.
Exactly. So what kind of sources are we talking about here? Ancient scrolls? Eyewitness accounts?
Yeah.
What have we got?
Well, no ancient scrolls, unfortunately. We do have some really interesting chronicles.
Chronicles.
Medieval ones from Georgia and neighboring areas, written by historians, chroniclers. Some might have even seen the events firsthand.
Wow, first-hand accounts. Amazing.
Gives us a glimpse into what was going on back then. The politics, the society, and of course the military strategies.
It's like we're hearing their stories directly.
You could say that.
So we've got those chronicles. Anything else adding to the narrative?
We also have accounts from Arab historians, like Ibn al-Athir, for example.
So we're getting the other side of the story.
Exactly. They focus more on the Seljuk perspective.
That's so important, having multiple viewpoints, getting the full picture, and avoiding any bias.
Absolutely. By comparing and contrasting, we can get a more complete, nuanced understanding.
Makes sense. Now, I'm curious about those Frankish soldiers, the ones who fought with the Georgians. Do the sources say anything about them?
There are a few mentions, yeah. The Armenian historian Matthew of Edessa, he talks about 100 Franks. Walter the Chancellor, he traveled with the Crusaders, he mentions 200.
So a small contingent, but they were there? Did they make a difference, or was it more symbolic?
Walter the Chancellor actually describes them as a striking force at the front of the Georgian army.
Interesting.
They probably played a key role disrupting the Seljuk vanguard, which paved the way for David's main attack.
Wow, so they weren't just there for show. They were right in the middle of it all.
They were. And their presence, it also reminds us of the broader context, the Crusades, the alliances, the rivalries of the time.
It's fascinating how one battle ties into so much history. The Seljuks, the Georgians, the Kipchaks, the Crusaders. It really shows how connected things were, even back then.
It does. And how seemingly isolated events can have huge consequences.
So we've got medieval chronicles, Arab accounts, mentions the Franks. If there's one key takeaway about the sources, what would it be?
It's got to be the importance of multiple perspectives. No one source can give us the whole story.
Right.
It's about examining different viewpoints, weighing the evidence, thinking critically. That's how we get closer to the truth.
A good reminder that history isn't just about memorizing facts. It's about understanding the complexities and using the sources to guide us.
Exactly. And sometimes they reveal things you'd never expect. Connections, insights, things that challenged what we thought we knew.
Okay, so as we wrap up our Didgori deep dive, what's the one question you want to leave our listeners with?
Good question. How about this? How do victories like this, these impossible triumphs, how do they shape national identity? How do they inspire people for generations to come?
Powerful stuff. They become more than just events, don't they? They become symbols.
Exactly. Symbols of resilience, determination, the spirit of a people.
And that brings us to the end of our Didgori journey. We covered a lot of ground, the empires, David's strategies, the impact on Georgia. We even delved into the sources themselves. But this is just the start. There's always more to explore, more to learn.
And more to think about.
Exactly. So until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, keep that curiosity alive.